1 week away from the draft, Rube. We're almost there.
Yeah, today's Thursday, right? So
Yeah.
a week from tonight. So, yeah, 8 o'clock it'll start. The Eagles will be on the clock around 9:30 and see what happens. It's going to be fun.
I was joking with someone about the 2018 draft when they had the 32nd pick after winning the Super Bowl. We waited around all night, and then they traded out of the first round. That was a funny use of time. I have a prediction. They will draft a player next Thursday night.
One? You're saying a player?
At least one.
Oh, that's different.
Yeah.
I think they'll draft one player Thursday.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. This is the Eagle Eye Podcast.
And it won't be at 10 or 30.
Well, that's probably more likely than than if they stayed there.
Yeah.
This is Eagle Eye Podcast. He's Reuben Frank. I'm Dave Zangaro. Yes, it's a little later. If you're like waiting and refreshing your feed to find this podcast, yes, this is later. We wanted to wait. Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman had their annual pre-draft press conference, and we thought it doesn't really make sense to do our podcast before hearing from those guys. So we waited to hear, and we got a bunch of information. It lasted for what, like 40, 45 minutes? It was
pretty long.
Pretty long, a lot of good information.
I mean, 20 minutes of that was Nick and Howie giggling at each other.
Yeah, they
telling their little inside
you
jokes.
have to separate them. And like if I was a teacher and they were sitting next to each other, I'd have to move them to opposite sides of the room.
That's what it was like.
Yeah.
And it's been like that with them. It's like 8th grade, about 8th grade.
It's annoying for us. It's good for the organization that they get along.
Organization. Yeah. Well, we've certainly seen the opposite.
Yeah, yes, we have. We wouldn't have to
And I think some of
separate.
that's performative. I think they really, especially on Howie's side.
Yeah, but I think they actually do get along.
I think they do, but Howie's always the one instigating the little inside whispered jokes. I mean, and today Nick was just kind of sitting there like, all right, Howie, like, enough. But anyway.
But a lot of stuff. And this is the first time they've spoken publicly since the Jalen Hurts extension. So a lot of it, we call it the pre-draft press conference. It took a while before we got to any draft questions. So we'll start there with...
We had a little controversy, too.
Yeah, and that's where we'll start.
That's not even what I was thinking, but go ahead.
Oh, you're talking about my question?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to the dynamics of the question face-off.
Yeah.
And my challenge to a fellow beat right now. A little bit of news. Eagles announced some promotions, some hires, and did not say anything about Matt Patricia, except in a story on their website, there was a mention of Matt Patricia. ESPN's Tim McManus happened to see it, tweeted it, and it caused a little bit of a bleep storm. Yeah,
it was a little stirring around, and we were in the auditorium waiting for Howie and Nick, and we're all looking for this reference that and I mean, I looked on there's like a couple different coaching lists on the website, and I went to the front page, and there was a story on the website about Kevin Patullo and all DK and all the different coaching changes. There was nothing about Matt Patricia, and Tim walks in, and we're like, "Where did you see this?" He's like, "It was in the website. It was on story." I was like, "Yeah, it's not there anymore. They deleted it."
Yeah,
but he got a screenshot.
He did,
and so. And then it was another 45 minutes till Howie and Nick actually came in the room.
Yeah. And eventually, Nick said it's trending that way. And then during his press conference...
Yeah, I asked him, I said, did you hire this guy or not?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, it's trending that way.
Yeah.
And he said, I know there's a report out there. I said, it's not a report. It was on your website.
Yeah,
it's not a report.
A little different. That's an announcement. That, look, hey, we all make mistakes.
Yeah.
It got published. It wasn't supposed to be published. But he's going to be on the staff, Matt Patricia.
Yeah.
And look, this was a name that we talked about during their defensive coordinator search and as they were looking for a linebacker coach replacement for Nick Rawlis. Like, he was one of the names that came up. And a big issue with Matt Patricia is his relationship with one of the Eagles' best players, arguably their best defensive player.
Yes, Slay. They were together in Detroit, I think just the 1 year, right?
2 years.
2 years. And Slay has been very, very open about his disdain for Matt Patricia, to the point of like, I like Detroit. I liked everything about Detroit except one guy, and he doesn't hide his feelings.
And he's told the story about like when he lost respect for Matt Patricia, and it was basically they were in a meeting, and he was ragging on Slay a little bit for working with some other players outside of the building. Used some not so flattering words according to Slay's account, and that was kind of it. And there was like a lack of respect there. Slay, I don't think ever got over it. I don't know if he's over it yet. I thought an important question was asked, though. Nick Sirianni said he has spoken to Slay about the hire of Matt Patricia. Look, I think people are really down on Matt Patricia, and I get it. He was a failure as a head coach. He became kind of a caricature with the pencil and the beard. You look at his resume, like, yeah, it's a fine resume. I think it's fair to question, like, how much good versus the potential damage of having him here.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I thought one telling thing was, and Nick was talking about what he brings to the table, and he mentioned his experience and his versatility. He's coached a lot of different areas. He said having another former head coach on the staff, I thought that was interesting. That's something that he really values. And, I think Steichen and Gannon were two guys that they weren't head coaches before they got here, but they're head coaches now. But two guys that he really valued their input and having them around, their experience. And when you look at the staff, he lost a lot of experience when he lost those guys, and his cornerbacks coach, who was an experienced guy. So I think a big part of this might be that that piece of it. Just he was a terrible head coach, I think, for 2.5 years in Detroit. What was his record?
Yeah, he only made it to maybe November?
Yeah.
In 2020?
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, he was awful. He was a real failure. I mean, he's on that list of failures from the Belichick tree.
13-29-1. So he coached, do the math, 11 games in his third year, because those were 16-game seasons. But, I think the beard,
Yeah, it's the beard, it's the pencil.
Yeah.
It's kind of the things that people like. Nick having pens in his visor is something you make fun of when the team's not doing well. No one gives a damn when
they're winning.
Like, if that pencil would have become, like, they'd be selling pencils at Ford Field if Matt Patricia was any good.
I mean, 3 rings with Bill. So, I don't know. It's an unusual hire, but at least he's not putting him on the offensive side.
Yeah, well, he has some background on offense.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
Last year, even.
I can't wait to talk to Slay.
That will be fun.
It's always fun.
It's always fun. I'm curious to see what he says. Like, if Slay can be mature enough to let it just ride. They're going to have to be in meetings together. They're going to see each other around the building. You get the sense that it's like, if Slay would have seen this man on the street, he would have gone on the other side. Like, he would just avoided him at all costs.
Or you would have fought him.
I don't think that's Slay's style. I think he just wants to be away from him.
And Nick's gonna. I mean, he talked to Slay, but he's gonna have to. He's gonna have to sit them down together.
You would think so.
Yeah. Say, look, we're all in this for the same goal, and
you hope Slay can be mature about it. He's a captain on this team, and it's a decision that's above his pay grade. So it's like, sometimes you just got to deal with it. They just paid you a lot of money.
Yeah.
And you might not like everything the organization does, but that's above your pay grade as a cornerback.
Yeah. Interesting one.
Yeah, it is an interesting hire. I can go through the other promotions and hires real quick.
Yeah, nothing real shocking.
That they announced. Yeah, DK McDonald has been promoted to defensive backs coach. That was the biggest one. He was the assistant under Denard Wilson, so he gets the promotion. A coach who Nick Sirianni is known for a really long time, longer than anyone on this staff. Kind of similar to Kevin Patullo, who got associate head coach added to his title. Doesn't mean much. It's like sometimes a guy will get like senior added to his title and they'll pay him some more money. That's what it seems like this was. Kind of just a promotion and a raise for a guy who they feel has done a good job. Tyler Scudder, now the assistant linebackers coach. He was formerly he's moved up already 2 times. Nick really likes him. He was Nick's assistant in year 1. Then he got promoted to defensive quality control. And now he has an assistant position coach. A few additions. Taver Johnson, we heard about this one a while back. Assistant defensive backs coach. Ornell Williams, Nickel's coach. That's a new one, new position. I like that though. Nickel it shouldn't really be classified as a cornerback sometimes. It's a very different position. And then the last 2, Mike D'Angelo hired as defensive quality control. Tyler Yelk, the new Nick Sirianni assistant.
There you have it.
It's a lot.
Yeah. So I think the dynamic of the coaching staff is one of the bigger stories of this coming season. You lose both your coordinators, your secondary coach. It's a lot.
It's a lot to replace.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's rare to lose both coordinators. I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't happen. So,
Well, it happens when the coach gets fired, not when you get to the Super Bowl.
yeah.
But,
yeah.
I'll have to look. I don't think it's ever happened when the Eagles have had a winning season or kept their coach at both coordinators so long, because their defensive coordinators never get head coaching jobs.
Yeah. I mean, Jim Johnson had it for a big chunk of time. Jim Schwartz had it for a big chunk of, like, you
Trying
didn't
to think. I mean, Jeff Fisher became a head coach, but he didn't leave here.
Mm-hmm.
He went to the Rams. Obviously, Sean McDermott went to Carolina for several years with Ron before he became a head coach. Leslie Frazier was in other places in between. Todd Bowles was in other places. So, yeah, I can't even think the last defensive coordinator to become a head coach. Emmett Thomas never did. Probably forgetting somebody obvious, but yeah, anyway.
Yeah. All right. You want to move on a little bit?
Let's move on a little bit.
Jalen Hurts got his contract. It feels like it was like a long time ago. It was 4 days ago.
How about that?
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it was. It must have been 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
It's kind of just like in our brains now. But got that big $255 million contract extension, and this is our first chance to ask Howie and Nick about it. I think I was the first one to ask about the contract, and I just asked Howie how it came together so quickly, and he was very quick to give credit to Jalen and Jalen's agent Nicole Lynn. All sides were pulling in the right direction, and look, we knew that because it came together in April,
Right.
But it was some public acknowledgement of that.
Yeah, it's rare for a contract like this to get done so seamlessly and without any, name calling or hard feelings anywhere. He gave credit to Bryce Johnston several times.
Jake Rosenberg.
Jake Rosenberg. Jake is vice president of football administration, I believe. Bryce is vice president of football transactions.
Yes, the cap guys.
Transactions and strategic planning. But gave them a lot of credit for the details. I mean, the contract this complicated. It's not just and Howie even said in one of his rare self-deprecating moments, he said these guys would come over to me and start explaining things in the contract. I was like, slow down, I don't get it. Those two guys are really, really sharp.
I've been on both sides of those types of conversations. I've been the guy explaining it, cap stuff to someone like they're 5, and I've been like, no, explain it to me like I'm 5. Some of these higher level deals.
Yeah, because the details it just gets really complicated, and he gave them a lot of credit. I think the person you give the most credit to is Jalen, and Howie even mentioned, like, Jalen certainly didn't take a hometown discount, but Howie did reference Jalen's and Nicole Lynn's understanding of, if we structure this a certain way, it'll benefit him by allowing us to.
It's a rare structure too.
Roster.
It's not a bad structure for Jalen because he's getting these lump sums, and that's what you'd rather have anyway. But he gave them credit, Jalen and Nicole Lynn, but he also gave credit to Jeffrey.
Big time.
And we talked about this on our last pod, or 2 pod, whatever. We talked about it recently.
Monday.
This was Tuesday because we didn't know the structure on Monday.
That's fair.
Yeah. Not that it matters, Scott. But in order to do a deal like this, or really a lot of these restructures that the Eagles do, you have to have an owner who's willing and capable to pay out lump sums whenever you ask him to. And some owners don't have it, and some owners won't do it. Yeah. So that gives Howie and Jake and Bryce the flexibility to structure a contract in this way. And a contract, like, you can maybe do a few of them. This is massive. You're giving out here's $30 million. Like, that's a lot of money, a lot of liquid to just hand out.
Yeah, and that's what they said at Chick-fil-A when I got a nice tea. A lot of liquid to hand out. And the franchise is worth $5 billion, I think, right around $5 billion.
I'd take the over on that.
This is $250 million. That's like a good chunk of the franchise. Like, that's like, Yeah,
I'd take the over on $5 billion, seeing as the Commanders are selling for $6 billion.
Maybe that'll raise prices of property in the neighborhood, but. I always wonder, where is that cat? Like, what account does Jeff Lurie, what's the process of that money going from, Jeff Lurie's like checking account into Jalen's? You know, does he Venmo him like the signing bonus?
I am not the right person to ask. I can speak about money in terms of NFL contracts and salary cap. In terms of like functional,
But I'm just really that's the kind of stuff that interests me. Like, how does the money get from Jeff Lurie to Jalen?
yeah. Do you do your own taxes or do you go to someone to do your taxes?
No, I have someone do it.
Yeah, I have someone do it too. I go to like H&R Block. I don't do anything fancy. I go to H&R Block, and the same lady every year, and I sit. It's I feel like I'm going to a dental cleaning every year because I don't understand half of what's happening. And I know I should be better at money stuff, and it's one of those subjects where my eyes glaze over. And I sit there every year in front of her, and she's asked me questions, and all I can think is, this is why I'm paying you.
Yeah.
Because I don't have the capacity nor the want to do this. I could probably figure it out. I don't think it's...
I'm amazed by my tax person's ability to, like, the rules change every year. And, you know, she'll be like, well, you know, last year you used Form, you know, C-190, but they don't have that anymore. But what we do have, let me get it here, is Form C-191.
Yeah. I would pay a lot, like, don't tell HR, I would pay a lot more to never have to do it.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't see that on the budget. I don't want to talk about taxes, but anyway.
Jalen doing his taxes next year?
Oh, yeah.
Like, it looks like you're in a new tax bracket, buddy.
That would be, yeah. We'll have to ask him.
Well, when Jalen, I'll ask my H&R Block lady when Jalen shows up next year.
And by the way, I think we're talking to Jalen next week.
Hopefully,
that's the tentative plan. I'm real curious how that'll go.
Other takeaways from what Nick and Howie said about the contract and how it came together and what it means.
Just you know, I mean, I think having the flexibility. We talked about this Monday, Tuesday, the flexibility to. You know, to build. Howie brought that up on his own, and that's huge. I was, you know, one I think important thing, and we kind of knew the answer, but this is a lot of money. How's it going to change? You know, we've seen players change when they get that first giant, and Howie's talked about how's a guy going to react? How is he going to respond when he has all this money in his pocket? And people respond different ways, and that's part of the evaluation process. They had, and he said the conversation was, how is he going to be? He'll be fine. He'll be the same. And I don't doubt that for a second.
We've already talked about that. I mean,
but it is something.
We don't even know him as well as they do.
No, I don't think we know him at all. But I think that's the fact that they didn't have to even discuss that tells you, you know, speaks volumes. It's a lot of money.
Howie actually did tell a joke that made us chuckle.
Which one was?
The Ferrari.
Yeah. Like he goes through this whole thing about how the money won't change Jalen, and then he's like, under his breath, he's like, he'll probably show up Monday in a Ferrari, driving a Ferrari. And that
would be funny now if he did it.
And then Nick said he should. I think Nick said he should. Howie probably should have gone like fur coat, you know, because that's something that'd be really out of character. But the reality is, everyone in the organization has no question about. His work ethic, his approach, his hunger, his obsession, his desire, none of that's going to change no matter how much money he has.
I'll tell you what will change. His gift to the offensive lineman next year better be a little better.
Yeah.
I think last year he gave him Jordans, which is a nice gift for a guy who's getting paid less than all them.
Right.
You got to up his game a little bit.
What do you think is a good, I guess, watch, nice a nice time.
Yeah, probably not shotguns like one quarterback gave his offensive line. I remember one year when I was covering the Texans, I think it was Schaub. Matt Schaub gave his offensive lineman. It was before hoverboards became big, like the big, you know, remember the Segways, the big things?
Yeah.
It was, I think it was Schaub. It might have been Arian Foster. Arian might have given his offensive lineman. It was the scariest day I've ever had on the job because you had these like 350-pound dudes learning how to ride Segways, and they're all off balance, shaking. Yeah. And I'm walking around like, one of these guys falls on me. I'm gonna have a chalk outline around me.
There was a point where they were all over the locker room. Mm-hmm. I don't know if Doug put an end to that because that was a little
dangerous.
Yeah. The world's most expensive watch is this Patek Philippe Nautilus, $254,000. might be a little much.
It's a little much.
Patek. Remember Freddie Patek from the Royals?
Nope.
Maybe just Rolexes.
Safe bet. Good watch.
Yeah. Timex. Probably not Timex. But yeah, I mean, it is a huge concern with a lot of guys, and it's not easy to project how someone's going to handle a lot of money.
I think the other interesting thing they were asked was about, and this is where we can get into the thiefage of my question.
Was thiefage?
But it was basically the same idea as my question anyway, so it worked out, and I got to follow up. But about, now that you have this major investment in the quarterback, what changes? Because I think it makes sense that, like, there have to be some change. Like, you're trying to protect this major investment, and that doesn't mean you're going to completely change the way you use Jalen Hurts, but you got to protect him too. I thought Nick had a good quote.
Yeah.
Remember the quote?
Yeah.
We didn't pay him more to do less.
Right. He said that a few times. Well, why don't you set up the way everything went down
with the question face
Yeah.
off? I was just trying to get a question in.
But you did. You had the floor.
I had the floor, but then they were like, Nick and Howie were joking, so I had to keep like starting and stopping and starting and stopping. And then I did leave a pause because I was waiting for them to finish whatever the heck they were doing. There was a Bo Wolf. The wolf really works in that. He like stole an egg from the.
Yeah.
It was a good move. It was a veteran move.
No, it wasn't a good move. It was BS because once you have the floor, like there's always that thing where like 10 guys are talking, then it's 3,
yeah,
and then like you kind of try to take command of the floor. And
I think he was like I was, and we're like, can they stop fooling around up here and we can get.
But he hadn't started the question. You had 80% of the question at you.
I like that you're fighting for me here.
It's the principle of the matter. You had the floor. I think once you're the only voice, it's over. Like if there's still like John McMullen's always like.
It was funny though because. When Bo got the question in, our whole side of the room went, oh.
Yeah, there was like this big murmur, like our side of the room.
Even Nick was like, oh,
yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
But then, I mean, I got the next question.
You did. But
I thought that
you handled it better than I would have. And Bo had no compunctions at all. He just kept going. Like,
once you start, you got to do it.
He didn't like look over you.
You got to
sorry.
You got to finish at that point. You got to finish strong.
He went full bore.
I respect going full bore at that point. But I thought the answers to those questions,
just like his stories,
were.
Just kidding.
I thought the answer to those questions were interesting though, because it's kind of what Nick said at the owners' meetings. He was asked, like, "Are you?"
I gotta watch that. I gotta watch the video of the presser. He's like 20 guys on our side of it. Ooh, it's so stupid.
Child.
Like, what a job we have.
Anyway. But yeah, so Nick at the owners' meeting said basically, yeah, we're going to use him the same way. First, do you buy that, or are there ways to protect him more? And second, does the contract really factor into that, or like is that just an ongoing process anyway to protect your starting quarterback?
Yeah, I think the latter. I think it's something that whether he's making minimum wage or $50 million a year, you have to make that a priority. He's not doing you any good if he's missing games.
Yeah.
And I think and we talked about this the other day. I think there were games where he was at too much risk this year. You mentioned the Chicago game when he did get hurt.
Yeah.
But there were other games. You look at the final stats, he's got 17 carries. And I get that he's a great weapon at the goal line, keepers, 4th and inches. Those are going to be there. But other times, there's so much talent in this team that, he doesn't have to be that.
Yeah.
And I get that his run, the threat of him running, makes the running game go better. It really helps every facet. So I'm not saying don't run him, but just be smart about it.
Yeah, and it's all I don't think this question's ever going away when you have a quarterback like that. It's always going to be that.
Yeah.
We saw Michael Vick, how deep in his career it was like, can they protect him more? I think, not to compare them, because I think Jalen has a much better sense of how to protect himself. Sure. But some of it is like the coaching staff needs to protect him. They sometimes you got to call just a run.
Yeah.
One of Nick's favorite things to do is to say, yeah, it ended up being a pass, but we consider it a run because it was an RPO. And you're like, yeah, but it was like it ended up being a run for Jalen. Like
Right.
that matters more.
Yeah, they counted his passes. I have a theory that Vic took on contact. Like, I think he always was trying to prove something, how tough he was, or how, I don't know.
I think some guys just play like that.
Yeah, maybe.
Jalen has a baseball background, so he's like physically, like he understands the mechanics of how to slide, and he does it. Like Vic, and you remember like them bringing Phillies over to try to show him how to slide. When a guy is 30, it's tough to teach him something.
Yeah, yeah. And the funny thing wasn't he drafted by a baseball team? Like, Michael?
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
He thought it was hilarious that he never slid. He used to joke about it. But, yeah, I think it's something you have to take into account.
And then, like, the other part of that, and Howie didn't answer my question because Nick kind of tried to answer for him, but I think there's a responsibility as the GM, too, to surround him with good players, but also players that minimize that risk, whether it's keeping that offensive line intact, having maybe not a star running back necessarily, but running backs that you feel comfortable can shoulder the load. So you don't feel the need to run with Jalen all the time. Receivers who can get open, to a lesser extent, like receivers who can get open quickly, who can be those hot routes. Like, not that you wouldn't have that anyway, but like there are pieces that Howie can add to help protect Jalen. But I don't know if that really enters the equation as much.
Yeah, I know for me that the times that were concerning were there were games where Miles would be killing it as far as, he'd have like 11 for 88 and they couldn't stop him and he was going off and getting all these yards, making big plays. And in the second half will come along and be all Jalen running the ball. It's like he's a running back. You're not even going to keep him next year. Get the wear and tear on him, not on the quarterback.
Yeah. Was there anything else about Hurts that really stood out to you? I'm looking through my notes.
No, I think those are the main. I think those are the main things.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, we feel pretty good about that?
Yeah.
We'll talk about drafting on the other side?
Yeah.
Sounds good. Catch all the sports action and more at Rivers Casino Philadelphia. Whether it's the money line or the pass line, there's something for everyone in a great sports book. Rivers Casino Philadelphia. Philly loves a winner. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Reuben, we're a week away from the draft. The Eagles have pick number 10, number 30, 4 more picks throughout the draft. So 6 picks this year, likely 12 picks next year. From the questions Howie and Nick were asked about the draft, what stood out to you?
It's funny to hear Howie talk about, we're going to have 4 comp picks next year. I guess that means they're not going to have a big signing. That's kind of it. But what stood out the most? I'm really fascinated by the whole they'll never take a running back linebacker thing. So I did ask about his philosophy regarding that. We know they haven't taken a linebacker in the first round in, 44 years now?
Yeah.
Haven't taken, 43 years because they haven't drafted this year.
I don't know if I told you this. I have this theory that Jerry Robinson, this time every year, he's like, my ears are ringing a lot. What? People keep talking about me?
It's like the 72 Dolphins, like every time.
That's why I always root for undefeated teams because I hate the 72 Dolphins.
Yeah, well, that's another story. But, it's kind of like that. Like Jerry Robinson's probably like once the first round's over and the Eagles haven't taken a linebacker, it's like, yeah, I'm still the last one.
See, I don't think Jerry Robinson's a nerd like the 72 Dolphins.
You think they overdo it a little?
Yeah. They celebrate the failure of other teams.
I think it's pretty funny.
It's lame.
They're connecting.
Yeah.
But in any case, I think that I don't know what I was saying. And then Keith Byers is the last first round running back in '86. And I asked Howie, what would it take for you to draft one of those guys in the first round? And he said, I really don't. We don't approach it that way. We don't go into it saying we're not going to take a linebacker. We're not going to take a running back. We go into it saying we want guys that are unique. And if the most unique guy available is one of those players, then we would consider him. And I believe that. And obviously there's a pretty unique running back in the first round this year.
Is there? I haven't heard that.
Yeah. I asked Elliot how many times he's tweeted about Bijan so far, and he said at least easily over 1,000. he tweets about Bijan like 100 times a day. But I think and look, I don't know how much he's lying. I mean, Howie's pretty open about the fact that he's
lying.
But he might be lying when he says he lies all the time. But I mean, there's no reason to lie about something general like that because we would never know. I mean, but I do think those guys are in play. And a guy like Bijan is a unique player. I mean, his receiving ability sets him apart from most running backs. I mean, he's a really, really good receiver. He averaged like 17 yards a catch this year, which is, I think I figured out only 73 wide receivers in the BCS averaged more yards. Wide receivers averaged more yards than he did. So, that makes him a unique guy, and he's got an incredible skill set. I still don't think they're going to take him, but
yeah, neither do I.
I am really interested in the process there, and he opened up a little bit about that.
A little bit, yeah. That was a funny part though, where he was basically so he was asked about this whole pre-draft process and whether or not they try to figure out what other teams are going to do, and he says, "Well, no one knows what we're going to do." And you're like, "Well, there's some people who think they know what you're going to do."
Yeah.
And then you start wondering, well, why do they think they know what you're going to do? I don't talk about the Eagles, he says.
Yeah, that was weird.
Okay.
Was interesting. Oh, go ahead.
No, okay.
I asked him at the end. I think it was one of the last questions about how his evaluation process has changed.
Yeah, he was good on it.
Yeah, and he talked about how he uses every bit of information now. Where I think he was indicating he didn't earlier, and some of the misses were because of that. And I think that's. He said if you see something there, don't ignore it. Like if you see a trait, you're like, maybe this will be a problem, but I don't think it's like trust your eyes. Like that's that could be a problem.
Yeah.
And
you can talk away a lot of red flags.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not to pick on Jalen Reagor, but
that's the obvious.
It's the obvious one, and it was like, yeah, the production wasn't great. Look at his quarterback, or look at these traits. Right. Yeah, he didn't run great at the combine. Look at his pro day. You can explain away these things, and I think sometimes you can get caught up with traits or a skill set, and then you can kind of overvalue your coaches to a certain extent.
Yeah,
it's like sometimes your coaches can't develop a guy who can't be developed.
Right.
I think that's where you fall into some traps. And if you can learn from those, great.
Yeah. But that was interesting to me. I thought he made the point about, look, because of the COVID year, a lot of these players are older than most draft picks. There's guys who are, 24, 25. Yeah. They're usually 21, 22, 23. I mean, Eagles have drafted guys who were 20. So, because everyone got that extra year and a lot of guys took it, transferred. And
it is a little wacky this year seeing some of the ages.
Yeah, yeah. Some of the college guys, it's hard to find their age. It's hard to find some of them, but other than the very top guys. But he mentioned obviously his well-known first-round pick who was 26. He talked about how he learned from that guys who were older. He said guys who were 24, but Fireman Danny was 26. But he said they're 20%.
Yeah, they got old man strength at that point.
Yeah,
body composition from an 18-year-old facing a 24-year-old.
Right,
it's a lot different.
Right. So the dominance that they show in college could be a mirage because by the time they get to the NFL, they no longer have that advantage, that physical advantage that you have as a grown man, as a 26-year-old guy. I don't think that was necessarily Fireman Danny's problem. I just don't think he wanted to play football. But it was interesting. That's something else to take into account this year. You're gonna take a guy that's transferred twice, took a COVID year, sat out a year, maybe 24, 25, and you really have to add that to the evaluation.
Yeah, you do. It's always fascinating, these philosophical questions because you have to factor in all these things, but then again, they're not all created equal.
Yeah.
And there's no formula. I bet you someone who's very analytical would like to be let's figure out a formula. It's 20% skill and it's 10% heart and it's 10% injury history, but there's just no way to compute it all. You just have to look at it all and figure out what's most important in this particular case, and then you have to try to judge it against other. It's a very involved process, and a lot of it ends up coming down to sheer luck. And it's like it's the most disheartening thing about it. It's like they're not trying to draft busts. They're working year round trying to get the best players, and they'll probably draft 6 or more players in this class, and the odds are you're not going to get 6 contributors.
No, and I think the thing, Nick, I don't think he said it today, but you can add this to the bingo card. Loves football. Is that on the bingo card?
Oh, let me see.
Put that on the bingo. We're going to have to explain this at some point.
Loves football. I think I did explain it on the pod, didn't I?
Oh, did you?
I'm going to create a Nick Sirianni.
I thought we were just talking about it.
Sometimes I don't remember. I guess that's a good sign of a good podcast, right?
Yeah.
We don't remember if we were just chatting about it or if we talked about it on
that
here.
That happens all the time.
Yeah, I'm creating Nick Sirianni press conference bingo boards with his favorite sayings or expressions, his go-tos. Loves football is good. I'll put it on there. Loves ball.
Loves ball or loves football. Yeah, I think they're both acceptable. But I think that is something you have to really look at, and it's as important as strength or speed or whatever. Is this guy?
So one thing I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just how committed is this guy to, does he want to come in the building at 5:30 and, hit the film room and hit the weight room and do all that extra stuff, and that adds up when you multiply that by 53.
Yeah, I didn't want to burn a question on this in the press conference because it's not super important, but it is something I'm fascinated by. He said he was asked about the strength of this draft versus other drafts, and he said he tries not to compare one draft class to another, which is something we do in the media.
Yeah.
I find that a little hard to believe because sometimes you have to trade picks from other drafts in the current draft. Yeah. He doesn't do it as much as some other teams.
Right.
But that fascinates because next year they're slated to have 12 picks. This year they're slated to have 6. If next year's class has the potential to be stronger, then theoretically those picks will end up they're not right now because future picks are never as valuable, but they'll end up being more valuable perhaps in the same slots that these picks are. So in a way, don't you have to compare? Maybe not the ones in the past, or at least the ones like coming up, and a lot can change. But
yeah. I mean, I'm sure they've already looked at all the big trends for next year and where it's strong and where it's not. Yeah. Yeah.
And this draft is I think it's probably not as strong at the top. There aren't like a ton of blue chippers that, you're like, we got to get this guy. But I think there are enough really good players. I think the first round's probably not as strong. Then you had all these guys who stayed a little longer, so you have more experience. I don't know how that factors in and how you weigh that, but that stuff's interesting too.
Yeah. What else? What other takeaways?
That might be it for me from the draft.
Yeah, I think the thing with Howie's pressers, he's not gonna give you any hints who they're gonna take. So we don't even ask those kind of questions anymore. We used to, like these pressers when Howie started, we would ask about specific players.
Mm-hmm. Oh, he was asked about Jalen Carter, and he didn't bite on talking about the individual player.
Right. Only
to kind of give the line of, we trust Big Dom. We go out there and do the homework. Every situation is different. But we know that. I mean, we knew that going in.
Yeah.
When I covered the Texans, John McClain, who covered the Oilers, he covered football a long time. He still does, kind of like part-time. We'd have that pre-draft press conference, and whoever the head coach was, John would always get the first question. He'd sit down and go, if it was Bill O'Brien, he'd go, Bill, who you taking in the draft? Bill would go,
Usually someone asks that at these things, but no one did today. I was happy about that. I think it's really funny.
I kind of still think it's funny. The Eagles did sign a guy.
Oh, yeah.
Since we last spoke to everyone. Olamide Zaccheaus.
Yeah.
A wide receiver, 25-year-old.
South Jersey.
South Jersey kid, went to St. Joe's Prep.
Where does Magnolia go to high school? Would it be Sterling? I'm going to look that up. Sorry about typing on my laptop.
Yeah, maybe.
Or Highland, maybe. Let's see here. See where he would have gone. But he went to St. Joe's.
Yeah.
Grew up in South Jersey. Let's see. Magnolia School District. Doesn't say where they go to high school.
It just says St. Joe's.
No, I'm looking at the Sterling High School. It is Sterling. Remember Victor Hobson from Mount Laurel? He went to St. Joe's. Yeah. Rich Gannon, obviously John Runyon Jr.
Yeah,
they've got a nice program.
I mean, it's a very good program.
Yeah.
You ever go to? I went to a St. Joe's game. My buddy's kid goes there.
Oh, really?
Plays lacrosse there. Shout out Keegan. But he
Keegan. What a lacrosse name that is.
Yeah, he's really good. But we went to a prep football game at Franklin Field. It was kind of fun.
Really?
Yeah, last year.
I haven't covered a game at Franklin Field since the 1960 NFL Championship game. Where's their? Do they have like a home field? I don't know where St. Joe's Prep is. Gerard.
I think they kind of travel around.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Anyway, we should probably talk about.
I did cover USFL semifinal at Franklin Field.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Zaccheaus, been in the league for a while now. Went to Virginia. 2019 came into the league. Didn't play much that year. Last year was his best season. He had 40 catches, 533 yards, 3 touchdowns. More than half of his snaps in the slot. He can play outside. What do you make of this signing? Is this a sign that Quez could be on the outs? Could he lose his job? Or is this a depth signing?
No, I think he's. I mean, and Nick talked about Quez today. We've got all the faith in the world in Quez, and we're totally confident in Quez. But I mean, let's face it, Quez had a terrible year with drops and fumbles and turning incompletions into interceptions. I don't even know what to call that, but he had a bad year, and he hurt this team. And I don't know how much you can count on him. I think he's got a trait that every team is looking for with his speed, but this kid's like the opposite of him. He didn't drop a pass last year.
He is fast, though.
He is fast. Yeah, he's fast. I'll tell you what.
Yeah, it's not like he's just a move the chains.
No, I just meant as far as his just reliability.
Yeah.
Had no drops. He was their second leading receiver.
Yeah, I mean that's a problem.
That's
for
a problem
Atlanta.
for the Falcons, but it's good for the Eagles because he's a guy who he's gotten a little better each year, which you see from undrafted guys sometimes. Yeah. His numbers in Virginia were crazy. I mean, he's short. He's not real tall, but he actually over the 17 and 18 seasons he had the most catches in the BCS, like 188.
Oh, very productive.
Yeah. So.
One undrafted, though. Yeah. So, reasons.
Undrafted,
yeah. Interesting signing. If nothing else, he gives them some depth that they lost when Zach Pascal left. You didn't want to go into a season with Britton Covey as your 4.
Devin Allen as your 4. Greg Ward.
The guy who hasn't played a football game in
you saw him in Cleveland.
Decade.
And Britton Covey's has he ever had a target as a receiver in the NFL?
No, but he played college football in the last decade.
Who's going to finish their career with more catches, Britton Covey or Devin Allen?
Britton Covey.
I'll take Devin Allen.
Okay.
All right. We got a little bet. Yeah. Bet you Chick-fil-A iced tea.
Okay.
Anyway, fills a really important
That
need.
might be a 2-1 or a 1-0 at the end of
It could be.
It's a good signing, though. At this point in free agency,
he's a solid guy,
solid player. So Nick backed Quez again. Went through the same thing with Quez that he'd always said. I thought it was interesting how he interjected. Like, it was a question to Nick about the signing and about what it meant for Quez. Nick answered it, and then Howie said, "I just want to no one in the building is down on Quez." Now there are 2 ways. It's funny game season at these press conferences, so I don't know if you just take anything at face value. So the one thought here is they like Quez. Of course they like Quez. He had 647 yards 2 years ago. He was 6th-round pick. He's getting better. He has speed. He's shown he can do it. Of course they like Quez.
Right.
The other thing is we have this player that we're going to talk up because if we trade him, we can save some cap space, and we have his replacement in the building already.
Right. And Quez's deal's up after this year.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be surprised at all if they trade him. He could be a guy that needs a change of scenery. I think he's really talented.
He was on Twitter. Did you see his tweets?
No.
I I guess after they signed Zaccheaus, I saw it a lot too. Like, this means the end for Quez, and Quez this, Quez that. He must have seen it all. And he basically said, I don't remember what he said, but he said something about it.
He's way too active on social media.
Quez?
Yeah.
Well, most players are.
Yeah.
But I don't mind that fire from him. I don't like.
Well, what was the gist of it?
I'll find it if it's still there.
No, they all delete him. This is the part of the podcast where Dave is
I
looking.
can't even find Quez on here. What's his
he blocked
Mr. something? There he is, Mr.
I don't think I even.
I'm gonna make y'all eat every bleeping word.
Well, I don't really approve of profanity.
I don't mind that.
No, I don't mind
if he channels it the right way.
You better do it if you're going to talk it.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah,
But I like that he cares that much.
Yeah, everyone it seems like a lot of people are down on Quez. You should be a little bit.
Yeah,
he had a bad season.
Yeah,
dropped a big pass in the Super Bowl. I get all that. I still think there are reasons but some of it is a little. I think Quez stinks. Like, he didn't stink 2 years ago when he had a better season than
John Hightower,
Olamide Zaccheaus has ever had.
Yeah.
So it's like there's still something there. Our buddy Mike, who tweets at us all the time, called Quez a huge underperformer. It's a 6th-round pick. Underperformer. I mean, look. So I agree in some part. Like, everyone should be down on Quez.
Yeah.
But I still think there's something there.
Yeah, I came around on him. After the Super Bowl, I said I just got to get rid of this guy, get someone they can rely on. But look, we've seen him do it at a high level, catch those deep balls in 2021, and unless if you can get a pick for him, you do it. But I haven't given up on him.
No, me neither. You got anything else on Zaccheaus?
No.
It's a tough name. Nick didn't even.
He didn't even try.
Did I get it right? Olamide Zaccheaus?
Yeah.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
It's a fun name to say.
It is.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he's better than Zach. I was disappointed in Zach Pascal.
Were you?
Yeah. I don't know.
What'd you expect?
I don't know.
It's like he's the 4th receiver.
They never threw to him. So.
He's the 4th receiver, 5th option. He was a blocker. I mean, I think sometimes you just gotta think in terms of what are they doing given the opportunities, and that's part of my bone to pick with Nick Sirianni, because he says that his go-to with Quez is he didn't have the same opportunities, and I think everyone acknowledges that. It's that he didn't do enough with the opportunities he had.
Yeah, and the opportunities weren't even that far off the previous year.
But they were
a little bit.
They were far off. You're going to look at targets here, but the types of targets were different, which is why I think we need to update some stats like that.
All right, you want to look at...
Do you think it'd be valuable to go through Jalen's tape last year and break down his carries, his attempts?
That'd be really good to have.
Should I do that when we get into some dead period?
Yeah, you do that.
It's going to take a while.
Just get it done and send it to me.
Just give you the information. Yeah. Yeah, but I think there are nuance in some of those stats that.
Well, we do have. I mean, we know kneel downs.
Mm-hmm, yeah,
we know 4th downs.
Yeah,
we have that, so we have a starting point.
Yeah. Probably still got to go through the tape.
Yeah, it's gonna take a while.
Yeah. All right. 2nd round picks. We've done this the last few pods. Best and worst 2nd round picks under Howie Roseman. We'll start with the best 2nd round picks.
Don't start with the best of the week. I guess we usually start with the best.
We've been doing that.
Yeah.
We could change it if you want, but
no, it's fine.
Okay. Best 2nd round picks. I'll be honest. I struggled with this one for a little bit.
I did. I went Jordan Matthews. Not really. It's a joke.
Good.
I went Jalen Hurts.
I went Jalen too.
I thought about Ertz.
I thought about Ertz too, because it's he had a great career here, and I don't want to. I mean, Jalen's had one good year, and I don't want to but he's the franchise. They just paid him. He's a franchise quarterback. You found your franchise quarterback in the 2nd round. You lucked into it a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd have him above Zach now.
Yeah, I think about the Super Bowl that Zach had, and that's what makes it a really tough call. He was incredible in that game.
I was thinking about just mumbling so you wouldn't know who I said. Hey, Hurts.
The fourth down catch, which is an incredible play by Foles, but for him to just get open and catch that ball, he got clobbered from behind, and then obviously the touchdown. And I mean, look, 116 catches, 3 Pro Bowls, but I just got to go with Hurts. I just can't not do it.
Yeah, I did the same thing. Who'd you have at 3?
Now 3's interesting. Mm-hmm. I kind of, for me it was either Goddard or Miles. I went Goddard.
Oh, are we gonna have the same list here?
Oh, that's been happening too much.
No, that hasn't happened at all in these though. Yeah, I went 3 Goddard, 4 Miles.
Yeah. For me, it was just the consistency. Dez is a really consistent player. Does a lot of things well. It was a tough call though.
Yeah,
because the stats, like if you just look at their stats, Miles might be. Although Goddard's he ranks higher among tight ends since he came in the league than Miles does among running backs. Part of that's the way he was used. Part of it's the injuries. But it's very close for me.
Yeah. And 5?
Miles made a Pro Bowl. Goddard hasn't.
Yeah.
But he would have this year if he didn't get hurt.
Yeah.
This past
I'm
year.
not going to put too much into that.
I went Landon 5th.
Gosh, we had the same top 5.
We had the same 5?
That's the first time this has happened. And I'll be honest, Landon was the pick when they made it. I wasn't so sure about it.
No, me too.
Because it was such a lengthy injury history. And I
Yeah.
knew the upside was great, but it was a risk. And so far, it's worked out brilliantly.
Yeah. And I think, I don't worry about that anymore. I think he's kind of shown he can stay healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Playing in a very physical position, and he's been durable. And also...
And it was a high second-round pick.
On 420. It was a high second-round pick.
I don't understand the reference.
Dickerson was 37, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. Same list. I wonder if we're all the same.
Yeah. That 53 pick's a good one.
1953?
No, I'm saying.
Oh, Jalen was number 53.
Jalen was 53. Miles was 53. And I believe Shady was 53.
Yeah. It's a good number.
Yeah.
How would you just trade for number 53?
Yeah, always have it.
All right. You want to start off the worst list?
The worst list? I have a feeling that the first one's going to be the same.
I went Jaquan Jarrett.
I went Jaquan as well.
Yeah.
I mean, and he ended up having a little bit of success after.
He had a really good game for the Jets.
Yeah.
He got Player of the Week.
Yeah. It was short-lived.
Yeah.
It was a shame. The one thing I always appreciate about Jaquan was you had questions for him, he'd answer them. He would very accountable, just couldn't play.
He did play 3 more years for the Jets. So he had a couple picks in 14. So he's vested. He played 5 years. Good for him.
Yeah.
Temple kid from Long Island, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It just didn't work out. Released
middle of the second season.
Not even middle, after a game in the second season.
I remember sitting in Boyko's, Derek Boyko, the old PR director, with Andy, real early, the morning they cut him, and Andy took that pick. He wasn't blaming Howie. That was his pick.
Yeah. He
really missed on that one. Gosh darn it. Who do you have next? There's a couple ways to go here.
I went J-Jaw.
Yeah, I did too. Really disappointing. I was really wrong about him.
Yeah, look, he just didn't work out here. And I know everyone looks at that draft like they could have had DK Metcalf. DK was off their board for medical stuff. Right or wrong. I mean, it wasn't, the pick was never going to be DK.
Right. J-Jaw has 16 career catches.
And the frustrating thing is...
And one of them, he caught at the 1 yard line, couldn't get in the end zone.
We would see glimpses at training camp.
Yeah.
And you'd see him catch a ball, high pointed ball, and you'd
I remember his first OTAs. I mean, I have a photo I took at his first OTAs. He's leaping and making.
He might ask you for that picture. Prove to his kids one day.
That's funny.
3?
Sydney.
Oh, are we gonna have the same list?
No, I think we'll differ here at the end.
I had Sydney, and that was a pick. I don't know what changed. Maybe me liking the Sydney pick changed the way I felt about Landon.
Yeah.
Because I was on board with gambling on Sydney, and I think it was because I liked Sydney so much, and I was like, we were talking about him in the first round, and I man, it was like, yeah, this guy can play. You want him, but he wasn't the same.
It made so much sense because he's just turned 21.
Very young.
Give him a redshirt year, bring him in, let him learn. And, they did so much research on guys, how much speed they lose coming off this injury. He just, I think with corners, if you lose just like a little bit of speed, it's the difference between being elite and being below average.
Yeah.
Just that.
And I think after that, and it's tough to know because I didn't know him. I never knew him before the injury. How do I put this delicately? I think at times he lacked confidence, and I think at times he lacked mental toughness when he was here.
Yeah.
And now I'm not saying he's still in the league, so maybe he's changed and he's. I remember like Malcolm called him out for a lack of mental toughness about like not playing through injuries. And I remember when I heard that, I went, "Well, this is never going to go well."
Yeah.
It was a shame because I really liked the player.
Yeah, I did too. He's with his 4th team since he left here. Now he's with the Bengals. I didn't even realize that.
Yeah.
But he's still in the league. Give him credit for that.
Mm-hmm.
And there were some reps. And this is really true of Rasul too. There were some reps where he'd be like, "Wow."
I thought Sidney was more talented than Rasul.
Yeah. Yeah. Rasul was tougher.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Rasul was a 3, right?
Yeah. The same draft. He was 99th overall.
Right.
Yeah.
It got tough for me after that.
4. I went Nate Allen.
I did too.
Oh, no.
And part of that was, he had a long career too, and he started a ton of games here.
But the list really does like get better. Like it's hard to find 5 bad picks.
So this is a pretty interesting stat. Only 4 defensive backs since the 2002 draft, or since 2000, have started 50 games that the Eagles drafted.
Okay.
And 3 of them were in the same draft.
Oh, that is weird.
That Lito Sheldon and Michael Lewis, and the other one's Nate Allen.
Nate played a lot.
He played a lot, and
none of it great.
Not
much of it good.
He wasn't awful. He had 13 picks.
Yeah. He led the league in getting pointed at by Nnamdi Asomugha.
I thought Kurt Coleman did.
Ooh, it was Nate or Kurt. Both of them got pointed at quite a bit.
The one thing about Nate Allen, he played almost every game from 2010 to 2014. He had 4 picks here last year. He had an interception each of his first 2 games, right? Or first 3 games, something like that. But he just wasn't good.
Yeah. Who's the 5th?
It's killed me to do it, but I went Vinny Curry.
Yeah?
Yeah, I went Vinny.
I went Jordan Matthews.
Jordan Matthews?
Yeah, I think he was more a product of circumstance than...
Jordan Matthews is in the top 10 in NFL history for most catches by a player in his first 3 years.
Yeah, and I don't want to take it away from him, but I think a lot of it was circumstance. He was the best player on a team with no receivers.
He was really good before he started getting hurt.
Yeah,
and he comes back and catches a touchdown in a Saints playoff game.
That wasn't him as a draft pick.
That's fair. Yeah. Vinny and
I thought about putting Cam just because he hasn't played yet. I did that in the 3rd round because there just weren't any other options.
Right.
I did that with N'Kobe, but at least there are other options here.
I mean, Vinny, and I love Vinny. He's one of my favorite guys, and he'll kill me. One time, I was on Quick Slants, and we were talking about the 2012 draft, and, I'm like, I'm trying to go, by memory, and I'm mentioning, like, that was the Fletcher draft, Michael Kendricks, Foles, who else did they draft that year? Boykin and Dennis Kelly, and I didn't mention Vinny. And I go out to practice the next day. He's like, "Rude, man, come on. Why are you dogging me on TV?" I'm like, "What? You didn't mention me." I love the guy. But I'm just looking at his numbers here. He had the one season he had like 9 sacks. What do you have, 9.5?
Yeah, but he became like a run stuffer.
He was okay. He wasn't a great run stuffer.
He started all 16 games on the only winning Super Bowl team in franchise history.
And that run stuffer had 25 solo tackles that year. So, look, he was okay, but you look at the sack, and they drafted him to be a sack guy. They drafted him in the 2nd round to be a sack guy, and he had, none his first year, he didn't play. He had 4, then he had 9, then he had 3.5, 2.5, 3, Goes to Tampa, has 2.5. Comes back, has 5, and then 3. He played 8 years here and had 30 sacks. And he averaged 3.5 sacks a year. Jordan Matthews
Earned a second contract.
Jordan Matthews had 3 800-yard seasons.
Yeah. And he was in the way of Nelly.
Yeah, I can't hold it against him that his team didn't surround him with. I mean, because if you're the only good receiver, now you're getting triple teamed. He also had 19. He was getting triple. All right,
you show me the game where Jordan Matthews got triple teamed.
I couldn't get away with that, but 19 touchdowns his first 3 years.
Yeah, look, there wasn't a clear fifth.
Yeah, I couldn't. Plus, Elliott would kill me. Let me see where just see where he ranks.
Some of the other players here, by the way, Michael Kendricks was the same draft as Vinny, and that was it. I mean, Cam Jurgens the other two, but we haven't seen him play.
I think Michael Kendricks was a pretty good player
for a while.
Yeah,
and then became a real afterthought.
Yeah, he was around the ball. All right, let's see where Jordan Matthews is here over those 3 years.
Yeah, we know the stats.
Well, I mean, that's how you measure wide receivers.
The eye test matters.
He was a top 20 receiver for a 3-year period.
Statistically.
Yeah. Yeah. Vinny Curry was never a top 20 player over a 3-year period. I'll bet he wasn't top 40 over any 3-year period.
Yeah, but Vinny also played 6 years here to start his career.
Yeah.
Jordan did not.
Oh, they traded him for Ronald Darby, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you weren't going to get Ronald Darby for Vinny Curry.
Well, age and position and need.
Yeah, and value. I mean, Jordan Matthews had the value to bring you a starting cornerback who was a Pro Bowler who was 24 because he was so highly regarded around the league. I love how we agree on 9 to 10.
The one that we don't agree on, we're going to spend 20 minutes on, and we're over an hour. We got to wrap this up.
All right.
Yeah, you got anything else?
No.
Next week's draft week. We can't wait. I'm excited. We'll have.
We're going to do like 3 drafts, three podcasts a day.
Well, maybe not that much, but we will have our Tuesday pod, and then Thursday, the draft will start. We'll have a pod each day during the draft. A bunch of fun stuff.
After the draft, not during the draft.
Well, it's still during the draft.
Yeah, but it won't be during the draft. It'll be after the draft.
Once the draft starts and it hasn't ended, it's during the draft.
But you're making it sound like we're going to do the podcast while the draft is ongoing.
I mean, I'd like these people to use some context clues to figure out.
I'd like you to be clear about what our plans are for the podcast.
I'm pretty sure they're clear.
No, you said during the like that'd be like, all right, there's the 13th pick. Let's do a podcast. No, we're going to wait till after the first round, after the third round, and after the pod. After the last round.
After the pod? We'll do a pod after the pod?
Yeah, we will. Anyway. They might be late. They will be late.
They will be late. Yeah, you'll probably listen to it the next morning.
No, they're going to stay up for it.
I appreciate that. If you enjoyed the Eagle Eye Podcast, please rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button and subscribe there as well. That's it for Reuben. I'm Dave. This has been Eagle Eye. We'll talk to you soon.